This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and now for something a little bit different. This is the Lenovo Yoga C630. What's so different about that, right? It looks like your kind of premium 13.3-inch, very thin and very light Ultrabook. It has kind of a soft touch, iron gray finish on it. Nice looking stuff, right? Well, this is Windows on ARM. There's a Qualcomm Snapdragon 850 CPU. When we talk about Snapdragons, usually we're talking about Android phones. This isn't the first to do that. There have been a couple that came out. At first with the Snapdragon 835, which really wasn't up to the job. Snapdragon 850 is supposed to be, Qualcomm claims, up to 30% faster. In benchmarks that we've run, it's between 20 and 25% faster, which is still pretty darn significant. So cool. Also, don't be confused. I don't know what Lenovo is up to lately with their naming conventions with this C series, but don't be confused. There's also a C630 that is a Chromebook, which ironically runs on Intel Core i3 and i5 CPUs. Is a little bit cheaper too. Anyway, this one, it's an interesting prospect. And so far, the Snapdragon laptops that have come out have been like this. Galaxy Book 12, for example, HP with their Envies. They're designed to be premium kind of business people laptops for those of you who do lightweight computing. That means MS Office is fine, some streaming video, that sort of thing, Skype, your email. This is not for heavy lifting. We're going to talk about that in detail. But it's not cheap either. So you're paying for a pretty nice 1080p display, touchscreen, pen capabilities, good casing, and all that kind of thing. 4G LTE, the other hallmark of having something with Snapdragon inside, but you're not getting a lot of processing power. It starts around $859, and that's with 4 gigs of RAM and 128 gig SSD, which is UFS style storage, something like you would find on an Android phone, not like an M.2 SSD. Speeds are decent. So there's the canoodle. We're going to look at it now. All right, to save you some time, let's talk about who this is for. This is for the business traveler, or even maybe the business sitting down at their own desk most of the time, kind of person who mostly wants a very thin and light, nice-looking, classy laptop. You don't do any heavy lifting. You're not doing video editing, but you're doing a lot of Skype, you're doing Slack, you're doing email, you're doing the web browser thing, all that sort of stuff. MS Office, yes, it can handle that. It's about as powerful as a Surface Go that runs a Pentium Gold CPU. That's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, folks. So, yeah, this is Windows on ARM. Okay, second thing, what does that mean to you? ARM is the Snapdragon CPU. That's what we use in mobile phones and mobile OS tablets and all that kind of thing. Well, Microsoft, once again, this is the second time that they've tried this, running Windows on ARM because of long battery life and the obvious integration of things like LTE chipsets. But when it comes to performance, there's actually two different experiences going on here. And why is that? Well, Windows Live Tile apps, AWP, whatever you want to call them, you know, the ones that are in the tiles in the start menu, that sort of thing that you get from Windows Store, 99% of those are compiled to both run on Intel and ARM natively. So they're going to be a lot faster. And in fact, the Geekbench Benchmark will benchmark in both modes. It'll do native ARM mode and it'll do Intel emulation mode. And you can see on screen that the performance is about double the speed if you get an ARM native app, which is probably why this ships with Windows 10S, which is the version of Windows that doesn't run regular old EXEs. It just runs those Windows Store programs. Now, it's a free and easy upgrade. Just go to the Windows Store and you can switch over to full Windows 10 Home if you want to do that. But the gotcha here is when this runs in Intel emulation mode, so you can install those desktop programs, like say you want to install Chrome or Photoshop or whatever your favorite normal regular PC program is, it can only run in 32-bit mode. So if you're using a program that's only available in 64-bit, like for example our PC Mark 10 benchmark and even our colorimeter that we use, which is a piece of hardware that measures the display characteristics, is actually a 32-bit app, but the driver still isn't working. You're not going to have absolute compatibility with the plethora of Windows applications that are out there. You will be limited to 32-bit. Those are the ones that will be slower. Now, the Microsoft Edge browser, that one is ARM native, and so is the Microsoft Office 365 suite that you can get from the Windows App Store too, which is pre-installed on this. All you do is just log into your account and you're ready to go. So the speeds for those programs are pretty darn decent, but if you want to do something like run, say, a lot of you people, I know you run 10 tabs at least in the browser, it will, even Edge is going to start to bog down. Particularly sites like YouTube are slow. You're going to notice that pages take longer to render when you go to websites. more media heavy ones, say like ESPN, it becomes more noticeable. And Chrome, being the fact that it's going to run in that emulation mode, it's going to be really pretty slow, you're going to take more of a performance hit. So if you're one of those people who just absolutely has to have Chrome, this is probably not the laptop for you. All right, now we've gotten that part out of the way. What about the rest of it? This is a 13.3-inch Ultrabook. Again, very thin, light, very premium feeling. It has a full HD IPS display, supports touch, it is glossy, and it also supports an active pen. Unlike every other Lenovo laptop out there that uses Wacom AES digitizers and the Lenovo Active Pen or the ThinkPad Pro Pen, this actually uses n-trig. My guess is probably that n-trig, now owned by Microsoft and also called Microsoft Pen Protocol, probably the drivers were ready for that first, and that's why that happened. So the Surface Pro Pen will work with it, for example, but not the current Lenovo Active Pens that are on the market for other yoga models out there. You've got UFS storage, like I said, instead of an M.2 SSD, decent speeds. You can see the benchmark on screen right now. Nothing class leading, but it's good enough. It's nothing I have a complaint with. So you can either get it with 128 or 256 gigs of storage. Not a super lot there. And you can get it with 4 or 8 gigs of RAM. Like I said, if you want to max it out with 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig SSD, that brings the price up to $999. Maybe Lenovo will have sales on it. Currently, they're not having any sales, so it's pretty much selling for the list price. It does have a fingerprint scanner. It has a 2-stage white backlit keyboard. This is a very low travel keyboard. This is not certainly not a Lenovo ThinkPad style experience. And even for yogas, this is pretty shallow and feels a little bit harsh when you're typing. It's about 0.9 millimeters of travel. I'm not loving typing on it. The trackpad, on the other hand, is very nice. Enjoy that a lot. That's Microsoft Precision. The speakers on this are top firing. That's always a good thing, firing at you, not at the desk. They're not particularly loud or full, though. Usually Lenovo speakers are pretty good. I think they were constrained by just how thin and light this design is. We're not going to show you the internals on this because there really is not much to see here. You can unscrew the bottom. There are many Torx T5 screws. And then there's a big battery plate that kind of blocks your view to everything else that's inside. But basically, this is like an Android phone motherboard. So everything is soldered on board. Other than accessing the battery, there's really not much you can do, including the Wi-Fi card. Speaking of Wi-Fi and LTE 4G, this has a SIM card slot in it and it's unlocked, so you can use the carrier of your choice. That worked really flawlessly for us. Ours came with a Verizon SIM inside. It switched between Wi-Fi and has the usual dual band 802.11 AC Wi-Fi and LTE really well. Throughput on this is good. Typically it is with laptops. They have lots of room for the antenna on there, so the reception is good on it. So that part is really nice. For those of you who are, again, more business travelers, this would be the appealing thing because you've got a network connection that's secure anywhere instead of having to worry about logging into public Wi-Fi or whatever. Ports, well, it is tiny, thin, all that sort of thing, and basically it's Snapdragon. You don't have an interface like an Alpine Ridge Intel Thunderbolt controller or anything like that going on. You have 2 USB-C, and these are Gen 1 3.1 ports on here. These are not Thunderbolt 3 ports. One of them will be used by the charger. You also have a headphone jack. You have that SIM card slot, and that is it. So, on the upside, the battery life on this is just really crazy. It's phenomenal. I've been getting display set at around eyeballing at about 150 nits of brightness. I've been getting about 13 hours of use to 14 hours of use. Like, no exaggeration there. Like, manufacturers will say that, but you never get that kind of battery life. This really does do that. Doing, again, the things that it was designed to do well, which is light office kind of productivity work, some streaming video, that sort of thing. It has a 60 watt-hour battery inside, which is an ample sized battery that you would expect to see on a Core i5 or i7 Ultrabook. So that's where your battery life's coming from, obviously. This is a more power-frugal CPU, and you get your usual 45-watt Lenovo charger. Now for the display, like I said, I'm sorry, our Spider 5 colorimeter, the drivers just wouldn't work on this machine, Windows on ARM, but eyeballing it, having looked at and reviewed hundreds of laptop displays, I would say, looking at it, this is one of those 75% of Adobe RGB, 99% of sRGB displays. Looks to me to be about 300 nits or so. It's a pretty pleasant looking display. It's in the premium category, certainly not going crazy high like 4K, but that would be a lot of demand on the processor too, so that makes sense that they wouldn't be doing 4K here. So that's the Lenovo Yoga C630, available now. Like I said, starts around $859, goes up to $999 if you want it. And relatively speaking, maxed out. And for the business traveler who has light computing needs, the fact that you have 4G LTE network connection just about anywhere and the super long battery life are really attractive, yeah? But the performance on this, and most buyers do factor in performance as part of the equation with laptops, is obviously not so strong yet. But it's a good harbinger of the future in terms of this kind of battery life, and if we see more programs become native on ARM, then the performance does pick up. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned for more cool tech videos. And thumbs up if you like this vid.